Title: **** All-Women Ranger Team takes action to control feral cats and protect native animals. An all-female ranger team in Central Australia has taken up arms to protect native animals from feral predators. The Jawampa Women Rangers have been honing their shooting skills at the Alice Springs Shooting Complex. The Rangers trap and euthanize feral cats with a gunshot, then bury them. According to a study, a single feral cat kills 740 animals per year on average. Feral cats threaten biodiversity as they eat native animals, compete for food and shelter, and can spread disease. Shooting and trapping are effective methods of control, and the rangers have been trained to shoot from vehicles. Sydney man extradited to Cairns to face court on child sex charges. A 47-year-old man accused of raping and indecently treating a child has been extradited from Sydney to Cairns to face court. Queensland detectives escorted the man, who cannot be named to protect the identity of the alleged victim, to the tropical city on a flight last night. The offences allegedly occurred between 2014 and 2015 at Mareeba, west of Cairns, and involved a child known to the man. After being charged with 1 count each of rape and indecent treatment of children, the accused was remanded in custody after not applying for bail. The matter is due to return to court in July. Source. Title: New Zealand repatriates ancestral remains after 150 years. A delegation from New Zealand has successfully repatriated over 100 Maori and Moriori remains looted or traded during colonial times from museums across Germany. German collectors frequently took human remains from former colonies for now condemned race science experiments in the 19th and 20th century. However, a broader push by institutions is underway to make amends for these historical wrongs. Head of repatriation at the Museum of New Zealand Te Papa Tongarewa, Te Herakiki Heri Winnie, who led the delegation, said handover ceremonies were being held in each city, allowing for reconciliation and restitution to take place. Title: Psychiatrist tells of trauma after missile hits hospital in Ukraine. A missile hit the hospital where psychiatrist Serhiy Zainovich was working, killing 4 people and injuring at least 30. He had been seeing a patient suffering from war-related anxiety and managed to make contact with her later to confirm she survived. Zainovich incurred injuries to his lungs, pelvis, femur, ribs, face and brain, and will spend 6 months in hospital. 80-year-old former Soviet Colonel Dmytro Kolodyazny lost an arm after the missile struck while he was on his way to a sports ground for exercise. Since 15 months ago, Dnipro in Ukraine has been a consistent target of missile attacks and shelling. Title: Court told ammunition found at couple's property matches those found at murder scene in Shane Barker trial. A court has heard that ammunition found at the property of Cedric and Nolene Jordan, accused of killing their former son-in-law Shane Jeffrey Barker, matched those found at the murder scene. Tasmanian police ballistics expert Gerard Dutton testified that the cartridge cases found at Campbelltown were fired from the same gun that discharged ammunition found at the Jordans' Little Pine property. The trial is in its 7th week, and the Jordans have pleaded not guilty, though prosecution alleges they killed Barker in cold blood. The exact make and model of the murder weapon has not been identified. Which banks are changing their interest rates as the RBA makes its 12th increase? Some major banks have already responded to the Reserve Bank of Australia's decision to bump up the cash rate target for the 12th time. Westpac was the first of the Big Four banks to respond, announcing it would increase its home loan variable interest rates by 0.25% per annum for new and existing customers from June 20. ANZ will increase variable interest rates across Australian home loans by 0.25% per annum from June 16. Commonwealth Bank will lift its home loan variable and savings interest rates by 0.25% per annum from June 16. Stay tuned for more updates. Title: Jarrod Croker achieves NRL milestone as Raiders take on Warriors. The Canberra Raiders are set to host the New Zealand Warriors as Raiders great Jarrod Croker hits a significant milestone of playing his 300th NRL match. Croker has been an essential player for the Raiders since his debut in 2009, scoring 130 tries and kicking 871 goals. Meanwhile, the Sea Eagles and the Dolphins will fight for a top 8 spot at Brookvale Oval. Don't miss out on the live scores and stats in this exciting NRL game. After years of preying on basketball courts, this town's Muslims are getting their first mosque. Wagga Wagga's Islamic population has risen from 92 people to more than 650 in the past 2 decades, and now council has finally approved the construction of a dedicated place of worship which will include a prayer hall for 100 people. Shamsul Haq said the local Islamic community was elated and had been raising funds for the project since 2009. The mosque will cost around $2 million to construct, and Marwa is hoping it will be complete in mid-2024. The mosque will serve as a community hub and attract even more Muslims to the region. Driest May on record hurts farmers desperate for relief. Farmers in the Upper Hunter are feeling the blow of the driest May on record, just 12 months after widespread flooding. Rainfall has been lower than during the peak of the last drought in 2018, with just a total of 1.4 mm recorded in May. Meanwhile, farmers in the Riverina and the Far West are faring better, with conditions in the Riverina well set up for winter and the Far West receiving its first significant rain of the year. Costs of inputs have made sowing crops significantly more expensive, and farmers are becoming increasingly risk-averse and wary of promising forecasts. Title: Children's Commissioner to investigate youth justice system in crisis. Australia's National Children's Commissioner, Anne Hollands, is launching a major inquiry into the national reforms of the country's youth justice system. The Commissioner believes that the system is in a state of crisis, with too few young people having access to early intervention and diversion programs like Hoops for Health. The program, run weekly in the Northern Territory's Bagot community, helps young and at-risk Indigenous people build life skills in a culturally safe environment. Hollands also noted that youth detention centres are not equipped to provide the necessary support for the children, with many dealing with acute trauma. She hopes the inquiry will provide a roadmap for future youth justice reform. Title: Gen Z Gym Bros pumping up Christianity on social media. Hugo Burns is a young man on a mission. The 19-year-old is leading the charge in a counter-cultural movement of Gen Z Christian bodybuilders. Burns is the founder of Sunday Mass, a liftwear brand that blends Catholicism with bodybuilding. With slogans like "On the Seventh Day He Lifted" and "The Last Supplement," Sunday Mass is taking the internet by storm and attracting a growing number of young people to Christianity. Burns is not alone in his efforts, as other digital disciples are spreading the word about religion through meme accounts and Bible puns. Trial begins for Perth financial advisor accused of stealing over $1 million from clients' superannuation funds. A Perth financial advisor, Mark Sebo, is currently on trial for allegedly stealing over $1 million from the superannuation accounts of 8 clients and using it to gamble online. Sebo pleaded not guilty to 36 charges of stealing the money over a 10-day period in July and August 2019. The clients had hired Sebo to help with their self-managed superannuation funds, and he was only allowed to access their accounts with their authorization. The court heard that most of the money was not recovered. Mr. Sebo is representing himself at the trial and denies any wrongdoing. Title: Will wage increases worsen Australia's inflation problem? Australia's wage increases are finally rising, but at what cost? There is a dispute about whether the recent modest wage rise delivered by the Fair Work Commission will lead to other things going up further, thus worsening the country's inflation problem. The Reserve Bank Governor, Philip Lowe, suggests that the trajectory of wages is just one of the unknowns in the complex situation facing the economy over the next year. The medium-term effect of the wages decision remains one of those time-will-tell issues, but one thing is clear: the necessities of life are becoming more unaffordable for many Australians. Title: Sovereign Hill workers postpone strike action until end of long weekend. Unionized workers at Sovereign Hill, a popular tourist attraction in Ballarat, have delayed any protected industrial action until next week, due to concerns about the operational impacts it might have during the King's Birthday long weekend. Earlier this week, workers had threatened to take protected industrial action, including striking or refusing to wear costumes or be photographed by visitors. However, they have now agreed to hold off any action until a staff vote is completed on the enterprise bargaining agreement offer from Sovereign Hill management. The union and management have been at a stalemate for 11 months. Queensland man in critical condition after stabbing and balcony fall. A man is in critical condition after a stabbing and two-story balcony fall in the Townsville CBD. The incident took place on a busy Friday night, and police are investigating the matter. The man is in the hospital with life-threatening injuries, and the motive behind the attack is still unclear. The police are appealing to anyone with information to come forward and help with the investigation. Title: Former U.S. President Donald Trump claims indictment for classified documents mishandling. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has announced on Truth Social that he has been indicted for mishandling classified documents after leaving the White House in 2021. He claims the indictment is related to boxes of documents recovered from his Florida residence. The U.S. Justice Department has been investigating whether Trump retained classified documents he was not authorized to have. Media outlets report that Trump has been indicted on 7 counts related to his handling of classified documents and obstruction of justice. Trump's attorneys have not provided evidence to support his defense. Title: ABC to accelerate digital transition in 5-year plan, radio services to be downgraded. ABC Managing Director David Anderson has announced details of the organization's 5-year plan, which includes an acceleration of the transition to digital and a downgrading of radio services. Most audiences are expected to access the ABC via digital products or services by 2030, which is why the ABC needs to adapt accordingly. Anderson said radio services would be rationalized as audiences move to digital. The move is in line with the trend in consumer behavior, with more people consuming content via on-demand and streaming services. The ABC aims to follow the audience towards digital to ensure continued relevance in the changing media landscape. Title: Cassegrain Wines enters voluntary administration due to COVID-19 and natural disasters. Cassegrain Wines, one of the largest winemaking operations in New South Wales, has fallen into voluntary administration due to financial losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, bushfires, and trade tariffs. The winery, which employs over 20 staff members, sources grapes from vineyards across the state, and previously exported to Japan and China. However, 80% of its grape stock from its main suppliers was deemed unsellable due to smoke taint from the 2019-20 bushfires, and the Chinese government imposed a 200% tariff on Australian wine in 2020. Managing Director John Cassegrain is optimistic about the company's future, but administrators will meet with creditors virtually on June 21 Street. Title: Trump indicted for the second time this year on criminal charges. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice for the second time this year over his handling of classified documents. This is the first time a former U.S. president has faced federal charges and sets up a dramatic presidential campaign for the Republican frontrunner, who is fighting legal battles on multiple fronts. Trump is already facing 34 felony counts in a New York court over an alleged hush money scheme, and an arraignment for the Miami case is scheduled for next week. Details of the charges are expected to be revealed after the arraignment. Arrest warrant granted for Sydney developer Gene Nassif over alleged fraud offences. An arrest warrant has been granted for Gene Nassif, founder of the development company Topplace, for alleged fraud offences. The New South Wales Organised Crime Squad detectives sought a warrant and issued a public appeal for information on Mr. Nassif's whereabouts. The investigation began in April 2021 under Strike Force Khalul, and his daughter, Ashlan Nassif, was charged with dishonestly obtaining a financial advantage and publishing false or misleading material to obtain an advantage earlier this year. Ms. Nassif was bailed on conditions, including a $2.6 million bond. Mr. Nassif, who is currently believed to be overseas, has been accused of no wrongdoing until now. Title: Adelaide man foils attempted bottle shop robbery. An Adelaide man has been hailed a hero after CCTV footage showed him stopping a group of youths from stealing alcohol from a bottle shop in northern Adelaide. Chris Van Londen, a former security guard, said he couldn't sit back and watch the robbery unfold without doing something. The CCTV footage showed Mr. Van Londen pulling the trolley filled with cartons of alcohol away from one of the youths and returning it to the store before running back to collect more items. The four males, aged between 12 to 16, entered the store and left without paying. SA police have appealed for information. ACT Supreme Court dismisses Calvary Health Care's bid to stop government's hospital takeover. Calvary Health Care's bid to stop the ACT government from taking over Calvary Public Hospital Bruce has been dismissed by the ACT Supreme Court. The court has removed restrictions that had prevented ACT government staff from accessing the site and intends to take control of the hospital from July 3. Calvary had argued it would not get just terms in compensation and claimed the bill, passed by the Legislative Assembly for the compulsory acquisition, was invalid. Nonetheless, the government has always maintained that its legislation could withstand a legal challenge. The court has yet to make findings on some of Calvary's arguments against the regulations dictating the process around the acquisition. Use of social media to groom kids disgraceful, judge says in sentencing 61 Yo. A 61-year-old man has been sentenced to 2 years and 9 months in prison for grooming 2 young girls with the intent to procure them for sexual abuse. The judge issued a warning over the use of social media, calling it disgraceful to groom children online. Frederick William Hun pleaded guilty to indecent assault, attempted indecent assault, and grooming with the intent to procure a young person for sexual abuse. The offences occurred over 15 days at the end of last year when the girls were 11 and 14 years old. Hun was already on the Community Protection Register, having previously served jail time for 2 counts of producing child exploitation material and 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault. Title: NT Blaine MLA Mark Turner accuses Labor of denying him natural justice. Blaine MLA Mark Turner has accused Territory Labor of denying him natural justice after being informed that his membership with the party would not be renewed. Mr. Turner was removed from Labor's parliamentary caucus 2 years ago, but he has maintained his membership with the party's organisational wing. In a statement released today, Mr. Turner accused the party of releasing a misleading statement, saying he was absolutely blindsided and found out about the decision after being contacted by a journalist. He said he would be appealing the decision further and alleging a breach of the National Code of Conduct and bullying policy. Victorian student teachers offered generous cash subsidies to work in the regions. The Victorian government is set to spend $32.2 million on a program aimed at addressing the regional teacher shortage crisis. The program offers thousands of dollars in subsidies to student teachers who take up regional or rural placements over the next 2 years, covering their accommodation, travel, and meals. The move aims to encourage teaching graduates to apply for regional and rural jobs. While the Victorian Education Union described the move as a positive plan, they called for more financial support, such as paid placements and retention payments for current staff, to further increase the number of students taking up education degrees. More than 60 people arrested in Port Augusta during 2-week police blitz. Police have arrested 66 people in Port Augusta over the past 2 weeks as part of an operation to curb antisocial behavior. In total, 42 adults and 24 juveniles were apprehended, with many released on bail under strict conditions. The operation saw additional officers, polair, dogs and mounted units patrolling the community. Assistant Police Commissioner Ian Parrott said the operation was a circuit breaker for antisocial behaviour so that other agencies could implement longer-term solutions. The operation is set to be extended for another 2 weeks. Jury retires to decide whether Canberra man murdered love of his life, who allegedly fell from car bonnet. A Canberra man, Michael O'Connell, 43, pleaded not guilty to the murder of his former partner, Danielle Jordan, who suffered catastrophic head injuries after allegedly falling from the bonnet of Mr. O'Connell's car. The jury has retired to deliver its verdict on charges of murder. Mr. O'Connell admitted that he and Ms. Jordan had a turbulent relationship, but disputed that he drove the car while Ms. Jordan was on the bonnet. The prosecution has argued that he intended to keep going at speed over a distance until Ms. Jordan was dislodged. The trial continues. Cyber hack of law firm HWL Ebsworth may affect Tasmanians, government says. The Tasmanian government is investigating whether any of its information was compromised in a cyber attack on national law firm HWL Ebsworth, which resulted in the release of data onto the dark web. Nine Entertainment reported the attack in May, which involved the theft of stolen employee and client data. Tasmania's Minister for Science and Technology, Madeleine Ogilvie, said the federal government had contacted the state government about the release of data. In April, the Department of Education, Children and Young People suffered a data breach involving at least 16,000 documents. U.S. Weather Agency declares first El Niño in 8 years is already underway. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) has declared that El Niño weather conditions are present and expected to strengthen in the Northern Hemisphere winter 2023-24. This comes after the Bureau of Meteorology (BOM) issued an El Niño warning. The transition to El Niño has been rapid following 3 years of the Pacific's opposite cool phase, La Niña. El Niño is a warming of the central and eastern equatorial Pacific, which alters weather patterns around the world. The greatest impact on Australia is due to the weakening of the Walker circulation. The dry signal emerging from the Indian Ocean also signals a hot and dry second half of 2023 for Australia. Inspirational Cairns woman missing after boat accident in Torres Strait. Cairns resident and speech therapist Wendy Richardson is still missing after a boating accident near Mubiarg Island in the Torres Strait. Richardson, 68, was travelling with 2 men when their 6-metre boat overturned. The men were eventually rescued, but Richardson disappeared when they tried to swim to another reef. Richardson is the daughter of pioneer aviator Sir Rob Norman, and is known for her tireless work helping the local community with speech therapy. Her family are holding out hope that she will be found, and have expressed their gratitude for the local community's efforts in searching for her. Title: Lawyers blame ChatGPT for fabricating legal research in court filing. 2 U.S. lawyers are facing possible sanctions after citing fabricated legal research in a lawsuit against Avianca Airlines. Attorneys Stephen A. Schwartz and Peter Lo Duca blame the artificial intelligence chatbot ChatGPT for suggesting several cases involving aviation mishaps that Schwartz used without verifying their authenticity. ChatGPT is an algorithm-powered tool that produces essay-like answers to prompts from users. Several of the cases suggested by ChatGPT were either non-existent or involved airlines that did not exist. Schwartz and Lo Duca claim they were tricked by the chatbot and have implemented safeguards to prevent a repeat incident. Title: Teenage boy jailed for terrorizing Broome and plane attack. A 17-year-old boy has been sentenced to 3 years in jail for his trail of destruction in Broome. The teenager stole a 4-wheel drive and rampaged through a golf course and high school, forcing a plan to abort landing. He appeared before the Children's Court in Broome and was charged with over 30 offences. The boy's behaviour continued when he was placed on a small custodial plane with other detainees, where he attempted to attack the pilot and kicked out the windows. He has been in and out of prison since the age of 11, with a history of family dysfunction and trauma. The judge sentenced him to jail and made him eligible for parole. $2.6 million owed to casual workers at two of NSW's biggest zoos. Taronga Zoo has announced that 902 casual workers at their Sydney and Dubbo sites are owed $2.6 million in historic underpayments due to a payroll system error. The issue was uncovered from a new payroll system implemented in February 2021, with Taronga now investigating previous payroll systems spanning back 6 years. The underpayments came to light after the Australian Workers' Union, who represent staff at both zoos, pushed for an audit. Affected workers will receive back pay, including interest and superannuation, from July. Taronga CEO Cameron Kerr apologised and vowed to correct the payroll system configuration.